ready to roll here. CK, take it over.
All right, we are back. Okay, so Nathaniel was just talking about how, some folks, he questions them because of their cognitive dissonance to Bitcoin. What I have noticed is like because of Bitcoin, because I've gotten so deep down Bitcoin, it is really woke me up to how little people go down anything. Like, honestly, if you want to speak like really strongly against any topic, you need to go super deep down the rabbit hole. And if you have not done that, then you're probably just propagating FUD. And like the way that the mainstream media propagates FUD around Bitcoin makes me think, what other FUD are they propagating? Are they propagating FUD against literally everything else? Like, what are they going deep down? And like, I think that really kind of like aligns with your point, Nathaniel, from that we just had off camera.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like I really, really value intellectual curiosity, like probably above all else. And that doesn't mean intellectual wishy-washiness in the sense of like you're allowed to be simultaneous, like you can have a position that you are completely convinced of, right? Like every fiber of your soul knows it, but also appreciate the fact that as humans, we constantly learn new things and there's new inputs that are going to change, redefine your position, right? And we're talking about concepts. We're not talking about values. I'm not talking about the things that you wake up every day and you say, I'm going to be this type of person or not. That's different, right? Those are things where I think it's different. I'm talking about like, are we in an inflationary or a deflationary like modality, right? Like this is a really big question. You have really smart people who disagree on this all the time. Like having people who get so stuck in one way of looking at things and aren't willing to come out of it. And this is a critique I find ironic because this is like one of people's favorite critique to levy against Bitcoiners. And I've found easily, if not as much, if not more, of that same type of intransigence in the kind of traditional macro community on FinTwit. And the best I can tell, my analysis of it is that I think there's kind of a sad idea among a lot of these folks who have built their reputations, not so much on money management, like the folks who actually manage money and do that for a living, like they pop in to tell you their opinion about stuff and you got to be skeptical because it's probably a position they have or whatever. It's more the folks who like kind of pretend like they're professional investors, but really they're potential, like they're professional newsletter writers. And like, no disrespect, obviously I'm a professional podcaster. This is not a knock on being media, not investing, but like, there are a lot of folks out there who like, they figure out what's the hook for their newsletter or their show or their YouTube or whatever, their appearances on Real Vision. And then they stick to that thing, they cling to it. That is their identity, that is their thing. And it traps them almost, in looking at things rather than building a reputation around, like, we live in a medium that's in a world that's so conversant, that's so driven by not just you putting out things, but then engaging with people about those things. And I mean, maybe Clubhouse will blow this up, but like, I don't know, like, it's just, you don't need to, like, I'm not even saying that everyone, like, Bitcoin's winning now and they should all respect and recognize, even though, like, I think that's a reasonable position to take. It's more like, you don't have to be, because you didn't think that this was going to be as big as it was and you're seeing this new evidence, doesn't mean that you have to double down on a position that you held that you're now having some doubts on for the sake of reifying the personality that you think you've built in media. And I would probably argue that people who feel so captured by the thing that they think, even if the thing that they think they are is a contrarian or some other stupid label, right? That they can't change their mind on things. They just have to keep fighting the same battles. I don't know. It's just not that interesting to me. And unfortunately, I found a lot of folks from the FinTwit sphere kind of double down in that way. People that I would have loved to have on the show last year that are just not that good fits right now because, like, I'm questioning how deep, to your point, CK, they've gone on the things that I liked about their analysis or that I agreed with. Like, there's a lot in the macro economy that doesn't touch Bitcoin too, and I want everyone who listens to my show to understand everything, right? I want them to understand politics. I want them to understand, geopolitics. Like if your goal is to understand the world, it means understanding the world. I think part why so many people love Bitcoin is that it becomes a gateway drug for understanding so many different parts of the world, so many different disciplines. So I don't know, I get bummed out when I see like Bitcoin's doing better, so people have to double down on not liking Bitcoin. It's fine if it wasn't a key part of your thing. Just like, what are you trying to prove and to whom, you know?
I like that you threw in Real Vision. The only person you named in all of that, you just called out Real Vision. It was beautiful.
No,
Yeah,
listen. I've actually, I mean, like, we had a whole conversation about this on Clubhouse the other night, and like, I think Real Vision is a radically positive force in financial media. Like, absolutely, beyond a shadow of a doubt. Like, come the fuck on, compared to like Bloomberg, who I will call out over and over again, or see, like, it's not even close. You know, but it's I think that the problem is not so much like Real Vision, it's that a lot of the way that they're like, the thing that makes their model amazing is also helping enable this problem. Like, what they did is they give a platform to a lot of different people. Like, instead of you having to have a podcast, right? Maybe you don't have the energy to do that, but you get to interview someone that you think is really interesting. You're not like, they have their hosts who have their beats and have their coverage, but they also have a lot of guest hosts, right? Who come in and they talk about their thing. And sometimes those hosts feel like they have to be like, that's their play, and they have to like be that identity over and over again. And I love the ones who aren't like that. Like, I'll give you Tony Greer is a person who's not like that. Tony Greer is he does a morning newsletter called the Morning Navigator, TG Macro on Twitter. He's on Real Vision all the time, and he is he's constantly churning through new information. He'll have conversations about everything you want, right? So it's not a blanket critique. It's just, I think Real Vision gets maybe called out with it because they're where a lot of these folks are taking their Twitter followings to the next stage of their public presence, let's say.
And I'll say on the Clubhouse, I don't know if this is the one you were talking about. They had someone like not the webmaster. I'm the webmaster, so I call everybody a webmaster. But like the web guy, or like a COO type person or something. They're taking a lot of heat at some point about kind of their coverage on Bitcoin and Raul's coverage in general. And
so if this was the one a couple weekends,
he did a great job.
If this was the one a couple weekends ago,
yeah.
he pinged me because I had mentioned them to ask me if I could get him in. And I agree. He sat there and listened. It was like a 3-hour conversation, you know? And like, to be fair to, so that's Ash Bennington. To be fair to him, like, right. He comes out of this space, right? He got his start at CoinDesk really early, you know? And listen, like I said, I am a big fan of building people up and creating more better media. And I think that, especially given the state of financial media, Real Vision can have a crazy powerful force. It's more just kind of like I said, there's a lot of folks who I've found who really like want to like establish their identities as a single thing, you know, that it's weird, again, especially because they critique Bitcoiners for like that all the time. It's so hypocritical.
So guys, I want to shift over to our second topic. We've gone way long on not the topics, which is great because this conversation's been bumping. But we had huge news, right? Which is obviously Tesla jumping in to add on to the corporates. Now we have BNY Mellon and MasterCard with kind of big news that they're going to be supporting Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. And we're also just seeing every single CIO, every single CFO, every single CTO and CEO getting questioned about when Bitcoin, what's your opinion on Bitcoin? And it seems like they all are having to have an opinion, right? Like now they can't just, go about their lives without having an opinion. They either have to say yes or no, right? They have to make a choice. Like, I want to get some opinions on this kind of development. Again, like, I think this aligns perfectly with hyper Bitcoinization. This is just on the path, but I'm curious to see what your guys' takes. I have not heard from Sed in a while, so I want to pass it off to you.
I'm not familiar with the BNY Mellon's news so well. I know they're going to custody now. That's about as all I know. I just saw the headline on my flight down. But I still think it's just another brick in the wall, another capitulation. Everyone's going to come to the table. They have no choice. The whole world is going to come down to, if you have free cash flows, you're going to put it in Bitcoin. And if you don't have free cash flows, you're going to try to acquire Bitcoin somewhere else. It's like we were talking about medium exchange before. I mean, Tesla already said that they will accept Bitcoin for payment in the near future. So, and they disclosed in whatever form they put out with the SEC that they may or may not liquidate that Bitcoin upon receipt. So I think we're still in this game of musical chairs, and everyone wants to acquire Bitcoin. The BNY Mellon news is huge because they manage what, $41 trillion. It's them, Fidelity, and a few other players that we need to come to the table to really anchor this thing in corporate America. But they're all coming to the table, and I just think it's another brick in the wall. Like Cash Cream was saying before, it barely even registered the MasterCard thing, and the BNY Mellon thing barely registered with me. So,
Surfer Jim,
Yes. Hello.
on to you. What's your opinion?
I totally agree with Cedric on that one. Another brick in the wall. It's just one more domino falling. I can't get away from the macro perspective that I constantly envision in my head. You don't get to change the tuning fork, and there's a reason. The tuning fork is vibrating at a pitch that is pleasant to our ears as human beings, and it's an exact pitch. Bitcoin is that kind of thing. It's this thing that everybody's coming to realize that it has these certain properties, and if I rally around it, I might benefit from this thing. And it's the what does Ayn Rand say? Rational self-interest. It's in everybody's rational self-interest to protect themselves, look out for themselves. And Bitcoin has proven itself to be something that if you take the crappy government money that they make you use as money and stick some of it in this other thing, the things you want in the future are likely to cost less. Everything keeps costing less. My cat keeps walking in the way, sorry. Everything keeps costing less in terms of Bitcoin. So every politician, every corporate CEO, everybody is going, wait a minute, this is just in my rational self-interest to get involved. And that message is just going to go run deeper and deeper and deeper in every corner of society one day. Unless some crazy thing happens and this network protocol breaks, it's just never going to stop. And every human on the planet is going to tune into Bitcoin, and they're not going to have a choice. This is the best money humans have ever seen, and we all need it. Everybody needs money, and everybody's going to want the best once they realize this is the best. And it's happening. The people are waking up. They've all been out of tune their whole lives. We all have. Now we're all coming together. It's going to sound fantastic.
It matters.
CFOs.
It matters. Like Luke Saylor just did a webinar for how many different public companies and showed them the way.
7,000.
The first of these matter. It is not just a brick in the wall right now. Like, these people have to learn. They have to be taught. They have to know that it's acceptable, that it's okay. So after about 100 of them, brick in the wall, 100%. I'm on the same boat. Like, everyone will capitulate. Everyone will figure this out. But the first ones matter bigly. Like, the first developers to come onto the network and support the network matter bigly. At some point, everybody's just a developer using the Bitcoin network at some point, right? You won't start counting that all of a sudden, like, I don't know, some famous developer is all of a sudden now using Bitcoin. Who gives a shit, right? But the first ones matter bigly.
I agree. It takes courage to be first. Back to you, Jim.
Well, every first adopter matters. Every single person who's adopted Bitcoin, who's come into tune with Bitcoin, matters. Some of them are just more famous, and they're able to onboard a lot more people. I am just this contractor dude, and when I talk about Bitcoin, I'm out of my lane with people. They don't care what I have to say, and they don't follow me, generally speaking. Although I've converted a few people, and many of my friends are now saying, oh, shit, you told me so. Damn it, I wish I listened. So every adopter matters. The big guy, I agree with you, Flip. The big guys really do help at this point. So much infrastructure has been built since the last bull run that's really helping this, allowing these big guys to take it seriously, allowing them to get in with big dollars. It all does matter. But in the end, it's you know, if you were around in 100 years, it's not going to matter that MicroStrategy bought what they bought, or Tesla, or anybody else. You're just going to wake up and you know, so your parents are going to say, here's some money, kid, go down and, you know, and whatever, this is my money. It's just going to be universal, and the history of it will be a footnote for the kids in their social studies class. about all these crazy people on podcasts like us that talked about it and promoted it 100 years ago, but it's just going to be freaking money someday. And
I don't know if you guys watched. They have these YouTube shows where they have posted like old '90s kind of like documentaries and series about like the internet and what it's going to be like. That's going to be us talking about the internet of value. I want to jump over to Stephen and then the cash flow queen.
Yeah, I agree with the sentiment that the corporate adoption is going to continue. I think it's not a question of, whether the rest of the Fortune 500 buys. I think it's a question of who's next. I also just have a hunch. I feel like Larry Ellison and Oracle, I know there was a little buzz about that. I've not seen any substantiated source, but I just feel like Larry Ellison, the samurai, likes doing stuff big. And I could see Oracle jumping on the books pretty soon. But I just love how normalized it's becoming to ask the question. Like if you rewind 3 years ago and you're, a CFO or you're just in a corporate finance department, if you're in like a team meeting or a company all hands and you raise your hand and you're like, hey, are we going to put Bitcoin on our balance sheet? Like 3 years ago, you're an idiot, right? Like you're laughed out of the room, and all the leadership is just like, well, clearly no, because that's a dumb idea. And now when you've got the richest man in the world, one of the richest companies in the world doing this, when you have that validation, now the question is normal. The anecdotally, like the friends I have in corporate finance, they are getting these questions in team meetings, in company all hands. It's like, are we considering doing what Tesla did? And so now that the question's there and it's normal to ask the question, it's this forcing function for the people answering that question to actually do some research into this and to learn. And I think that's powerful. And the more they learn, better for Bitcoin.
My turn.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think as the price as the price appreciates with Bitcoin, certain eyes will look at this asset class. Like I can remember, back when we were all excited for Bitcoin to get to $1,000, and even at 50,000, as far as institutions, it's still too low, of an asset class for certain, institutional capital aggregators and so forth. And I think I think SED is from the future. So SED is saying it doesn't really matter, because at some point, even to quote Elon, in retrospect, it was inevitable, right? So, I think, if I can speak for SED, I think that's kind of what I'm feeling that he's saying, is that at some point we all realize that breathing is good for life. Breathing is good to stay alive. And Bitcoin will be that breath, and Surfer Jim, the analogy that you gave with the orchestra and the tuning fork was just so, I resonate with that so much. Bitcoin is at this frequency, and it's just waiting for everyone else to catch up and to realize. Even NIDIG, Ross Stevens, he was saying, about the bamboo analogy and how many years that they were, in the process of going out and talking to, these corporations and these different institutions, and just too early, just too early. And it's Bitcoin is water. It flows. It's going to flow and settle and continue to move at its own pace. And at some point, again, it will be inevitable that individuals, people, corporations, nations, states, sovereign wealth funds will all have some portion of their treasury in Bitcoin. The beautiful thing and the most exciting thing for me is that the average individual has the opportunity to be in front of all of that. There's never been another asset class where, the small retail mom and pop investor has been able to be in first. And that's really, really exciting to me.
I think Bitcoin, I agree with what Cash Queen said. Bitcoin is it flows like water, and it's hope. But it's a weird thing that the dichotomy is that it's the only fixed thing we've ever created in the universe, that man has created. That's what Breedlove said on my show. It's a fixed figure that's not corruptible by any one person or government or state. And what that gives us is for the first time in humanity, a fixed denominator, which is the key to our language of money, that fixed point in the universe. And that's what I try to get across to people. And it's like, I'm almost sad Elon's on board, with all his games and everything. Cause like, it's bittersweet. Like, I'm not in a rush to go up in price. It's not good for me. I have so much faith that when this thing goes down, I like to buy it, and, I want all my friends and family to be a part of it. And it's a weird thing too, because Elon kind of woke up my friends and family, but that was kind of a shame too, because they had a chance to beat Elon to this. And most of them don't even understand it. They just see the chart and they think, oh, Elon bought it. This thing's going parabolic. It's going to drop. They don't understand that drops are good and that it's a fixed point in the universe. And you have an opportunity. Like, imagine you can buy a piece of language, like you've never been able to buy a network before like that. That's decentralized. You could buy Apple. Apple's really valuable. They can push software to 1.5 billion people in 5 seconds, but they can print more stock. And you're not close to Tim Cook. So we've never had an opportunity to buy language before or buy something that was fixed. And it's a fixed point in the universe that we've never had. So, that's just my whole thing, is like really just trying to get people to understand that language. And it's almost beyond the point of the value of that language, because at some point the language will just be the language and we won't have any other language to compare it to. So dollars price point is just an exchange rate. And when dollars go away, you just use Bitcoin. So I'm kind of bummed Elon's on board.
If I can get one last word on the BNY Mellon, I just wanted to give a shout out to Brian Brooks. Maybe, we can make the argument that he didn't matter in the end, but, OCC Comptroller is what played a huge part in BNY Mellon being able to kind of roll out these custody services. They even cited him as part of the reason why they were able to kind of make this move into Bitcoin, because he changed the regulation and made it very clear that, banks could use blockchain, as a settlement layer, basically. That's part of what allowed them to actually make this move finally. He's like a random, he was part of Coinbase and like kind of snuck in as a acting comptroller after, I think the guy before him kind of left. And oh my gosh, like the amount of stuff that he did to kind of help businesses who are based on Bitcoin is pretty impressive. I mean, we operate as a Bitcoin business, and we have in the past, just because Bitcoin is in our name, have had banks say, no, we're not going to work with you because, we're a media company, right? They're like, you talk about Bitcoin, so, we're not going to give you a bank account. And it's like, oh, holy cow, that was legal for them. One of the things that Brian Brooks did right before he left is he made that illegal. Banks can't, they can't discriminate based on whether or not you are a Bitcoin company or not. So, he's done some really cool things. And, I feel like he deserves a shout out for this BNY Mellon move.
So who on earth would argue that he was inconsequential? Because I would bet basically all my Bitcoin at a leveraged rate that he will go down as the most effectual politician in the history of Bitcoin. Because he, to your point, he came in like a fucking wrecking ball, right? Like, I 100%. Think that he knew he did not have much time in that. He was like, forward guidance. Yeah, you guys can custody crypto now. They're like, really? Are you sure? Like, wait, just to be clear, you're saying literally the thing that we've not been able to touch forever, we can interact with. He's like, absolutely, go do it now. No. And they're like, okay, but what about like stablecoin issuers? He's like, nope, them too. You can definitely work with stablecoin issuers of all types. They're like, they don't need to be approved by you. He's like, absolutely not. Just do it. Get in there right now. Like, he's like, oh, by the way, parting shot. Blockchains are swift. I'm out. Like, that's literally how Brian Brooks went through the OCC in the 11 months, maybe not even the 9 months that he was there. It was insane. So much that Maxine Waters wrote a letter to Biden being like, can you please undo literally all of that? It was nuts. But I kind of feel like, I don't know, Brian, I've never actually talked to him. I've never had him on the show or anything. It feels to me like the actions of a man who is can I open Pandora's box like sufficiently such that all of this cannot be put back in when the next administration comes in? You know what I mean? Like, like if I create an incentive for the BNY Mellons of the world to open up multi-billion-dollar, custody divisions, how hard is it for my, the people who come after me to shove that back in the box? Like that feels like the play. So I don't know. I think it's going to be like it'll be on the pantheon, man.
Can I jump in? And I don't want to put Brian on too much of a pedestal because, like, as Bitcoiners, I would say that he did a lot of shit coining. But with that being said, if it was not Brian, it would have been someone else because Bitcoin fucking aligns incentives. It is in all of our incentives to pump Bitcoin. It is in all of our incentives to put Bitcoin in the best position as possible. It is in all of politicians who have a Bitcoin bags incentive to do the same. And now we have our queen, Cynthia Lummis, who is pushing things in the Senate. We have four different congressmen in the Congress who are pushing these agendas. And this is just the start. This is just the start. We're going to have more of them. We're going to have more fifth pillars in every single government, Nigeria, India, US, UK, it doesn't matter, who have a personal bag, and they will be incentivized to help Bitcoin, just like each and every one of us.
Brian could have been worse. He could have been a bad actor.
He was great.
I'm just saying.
Like, no, I mean, I'm not saying.
I think that Bitcoiners are pretty good at going, you know what? Let's find the good in this. And the fact that he wasn't, let's say he made a forward guidance, said this will never happen and you're an absolute asshole if you ever ask me again, I think is also really good, right? Like could have gone the other way.
Yeah, I don't think you're wrong, CK, and I'm very much not about putting people on pedestals, but I will put some spec on the name for what got done in those 9 months, regardless of anything else you happen to think of him. So even if we're just determining that career, that's my point. But of course, like, it's always good to avoid. I mean, this is what I love about Bitcoin. It's like the idea of hero worship gets pretty well trod upon. And as a former punk and hardcore kid, that's pretty deep in my DNA.
If you see Satoshi on the road, you run over him. No heroes.
All right, Stephen, jump in.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with the no heroes sentiment. And I think it just comes with history. Like when I look at some of the most influential people in sparking my interest into Bitcoin, they're not people who I agree with on Bitcoin any longer, like wow. Roger Ver, Eric Voorhees, they kind of opened my eyes to Bitcoin, Ryan Charles. And so I think you go through enough of that and you start to realize the importance of Bitcoin not relying on any single person, not putting any single person on a pedestal. But at the same time, there is kind of this spectrum to it, right? And like the pendulum can swing too far in the other direction. Like it is good to play defense. It's good to keep our guard up. But just as like an individual, if you're trying to navigate this space and stay sane, then you can get into kind of like a dark, pessimistic headspace if you just constantly assume that everyone is going to backstab Bitcoin at some point. And it kind of prevents you from just enjoying and smiling at some of the good stuff that does happen. So that's like, it's a really hard balance to strike, but I think that's maybe one of the arts of like being a Bitcoiner and that personal journey is like just trying constantly to strike the right balance there.
As far as pedestals, I think Bitcoin allows each of us to have individual sovereignty. We are all queens and kings. So there is no, my mother used to tell me growing up as a child, she would say, never look up to anyone and never look down on anyone, but to look people eye to eye, because we're all equal. We're all unique. We're all fascinating, right? So we are, at a place and point in time where we have this tuning fork. I'll use Jim's analogy. We have this musical tuning fork that allows us to have financial sovereignty, individual sovereignty, whatever type of sovereignty it is that you choose for yourself. So there is no reason to put anyone on a pedestal, but at the same time, there's no harm in giving folks shout outs or whatever, or a pat on the back. But just remember, at the end of the day, that it's about responsibility. When I first got involved in Bitcoin, some people would come to me and ask me about it, and I would tell them that you're not ready for Bitcoin. Like you're not ready to have that type of responsibility, because it is a large responsibility. And for some individuals, just like we talk about not holding your own keys, it's not your Bitcoin, right? There are some people out there that, for whatever reason, just their makeup, their DNA, they just can't self-custody, and so at the end of the day, they have to figure out what's best for them and so forth. But the thing that attracted me to the technology and to the space was the sovereignty that was wrapped around the beauty of the code. So.
Amen to that. Guys, we are going really close on 2 hours here. I know there were some technical difficulties that interrupted the conversation, but I want to get into our last point here, which is that we are starting to see countries grapple with Bitcoin's reality, and it's kind of coming in the form of them trying to quote unquote ban it for multiple occurrences. We're seeing Nigeria and India kind of grapple with the reality that it's not as easy as decreeing Bitcoin as illegal. Like, you're going to have to really get down and dirty and stop your people from using this stuff, because it is permissionless, because it has value, because it has network effects and utility. And we're starting to see, especially from Nigeria publicly, that it's not going to be easy to ban it. I would argue that even the US can't even ban Ripple. So like, how could we even expect them to freaking ban Bitcoin? But with just looking at it's not easy to ban. Like, there's this new development where banning Bitcoin is bad for your people. Like, what are the takes on what is kind of coming out of Nigeria, what's coming out of India, what's coming out of these countries that are kind of grappling with Bitcoin's existence and their own sovereignty as nations? Let's go over to Nathaniel.
So, I mean, I've kind of said a lot of this, so I want to make sure to clear some other room for people. I think super important to understand the context that these different nations are functioning in relative to power internally, as well as kind of power relationships geopolitically, and ask that set of questions. I think understanding the context of how they operate in general is really important. Like, India has probably one of the most profound demonetization experiments on its books in history, where overnight they ripped out the 500 rupee note and the 1000 rupee note. They literally gave people like 12 hours, said they weren't going to go there, and overnight there was 75% less currency in circulation. And Harvard studies have been done on what this did to kind of regular people and stuff. So like, it's not out of character, I guess is my point, right? So you have all that context. At the end of the day, like, I don't know. I guess let me start with my hope. Watching these two situations specifically, it feels to me like this India ban is a foregone conclusion, and it's the opening salvo in central banks figuring out how to get their way to eliminate competition for their central bank digital currency. Because that's what the biggest actor in India that has been opposed to digital currencies has been the Reserve Bank of India. They had the effective ban for 2 years before the Supreme Court overturned it there. It feels to me like there's a small possibility, based on what I'm seeing out of Nigeria, that it goes the other way. And they actually find a way for it, that basically they overturn the central bank's position and find a new way to kind of bring crypto into the fold and Bitcoin into the fold in a really big way. Could be optimistic, we're gonna have to wait and see, but that would be very cool to have these two things happening totally simultaneously with two of the 10 most populous nations in the world, running different directions, because it just reinforces that like, there's gonna be a lot of ways this plays out.
All right, let's go server Jim. That was a great take. Nuanced.
Okay, so what was the original question? You were talking about the I'm sorry.
Well,
I forgot how you
ultimately,
posed it.
countries are grappling with Bitcoin.
Oh, okay.
Countries are grappling with Bitcoin. Some
Thank
of them
you.
are trying to ban it right now, and they're realizing it's not that easy.
Okay, so I'm glad you phrased it the way you phrased it again, because I don't see countries as anything. I see people. So countries, governments are just groups of people. And this is why Bitcoin wins and everybody aligns with Bitcoin, because everybody's always looking out for their own rational self-interest, no matter what they say in public and how they're out there to help you. Politicians are a bunch of bullshitters at every level, and they want the same things we all want: a better life, more wealth for ourselves, more time with our family and our loved ones. Everybody wants all the same things. It's how we're programmed. And money is one of the things that help us get so much of what we enjoy in this world. And so they're not going to win. You can't ban money. You can't ban new forms of money that humans want to coalesce around. It's like, I want to liken Bitcoin or money as a principle, like a first principle of humanity, similar to gravity. You don't get to argue with it, right? The concept of money has been refined for thousands of years. Humans know we need money. And when you have a good form of money, everybody wants that. Everybody wants to use it, right? So trying to ban the best form of money humans have ever created is like trying to ban gravity in your country. It's just not going to happen. You're not allowed to mess with. So think about a chemist. He mixes some chemicals together. He wants to get a result. Is it up to him what the result is? Absolutely not. It's up to the molecules. He can change the formula and get a different result, but he's working with physics. He's working with first principle stuff. What about the engineer who wants to build a building? Some people went out and tested steel beams. They know about how much they'll handle. The engineer has to calculate all the loads that are going to land on that building so it never falls down. Can he cheat? Well, not and get away with it, because physics force him to follow the rules of the nature of this universe and of this world. And I just see money, and now Bitcoin, the best form of money, as one of these things that humans cannot argue with. You can't fight it. It's part of the first principles of humanity. You have to align with it or you're going to freaking lose, my friend. So get with the program and get yourself as much damn Bitcoin as you possibly can. Front run those rich Wall Street assholes that are going to suck up way too much of it. We deserve it first. We're front running all the rich bastards in the world. Let's do it.
Let's go. That's fiery as fuck. I love it. All right, let's go to Sed.
Yeah, man, I agree with Server Jim. I mean, but to take it a little further, I think that Bitcoin is the American dream that we refer to when we think of the American dream, that people can get ahead due to their own hard work. And I think Bitcoin brings that back to the universal equation. So I just think that Bitcoin is the dream. And I just want to see as many people go for their dreams as possible and not play to the lowest common denominator, but to go for it all. And I think Bitcoin gives us that opportunity to actually create value and extract value, because I think that humans produce more value than they consume. So I'm really excited. I just think it's the dream, and I really want to share it with everybody.
Love it. All right. Well, I want to get to everyone here on this take about, countries trying to ban Bitcoin, around, Bitcoin as an inevitability, as a force of nature. Let's go to Bran, and then let's go to Cashflow Queen.
Yeah, I mean, I would just add that Bitcoin doesn't exist in the physical world. It's not, countries aren't a thing for Bitcoin, so they can grapple with it all they want, and doesn't matter ultimately. This is a key that you have that unlocks your, stake in this digital network that exists completely beyond anything that a government can touch. So, I agree with what Nathaniel said. They're going to grapple with it in a lot of different ways. And, we're just here to, play our role. And I think ultimately, almost just to trigger said, but Elon has a really good take about, the digital world can interact with each other in like so quickly that for a digital world to talk to humans, it's like us talking to trees. Right? The bandwidth that it has. And so I think that even beyond us meat sacks trying to play with Bitcoin, Bitcoin's going to enable so much more from just a digital and robotic and, mechanized sense that, it's not even for us. It's for something way beyond in the future. And yeah, there's a bullish take.
We're getting cosmic. Cash flow.
Cosmic. I love it. Yeah, I think countries that are just out and out attempting to ban Bitcoin are coming from their own self-interest. And when I think about, them trying to ban Bitcoin per se. It to me it falls against, or it's a direct violation of international human rights. It's a country committing genocide against their own people. I mean, and that's
right.
just the way that I see it. When you really boil this down, we'll be talking about this, years down the road. We'll say, can you believe that they were like trying to have their citizens not breathe air? It's a no-brainer for me. Again, it goes back to them and their own self-interest. So if your interest is of the people, then you want the best for the people. You want to take time. You want to understand the code. You want to understand the technology, and you want to see how that we can harmonize and cohesively come together. And have this, whatever this is, and we're speaking Bitcoin, but I'm saying in the minds of them, have this technology to further, advance their people. I just think banning Bitcoin is genocide against people.
I love that, because in Tommy Mercheski, Young Gucci T, our head designer, our creative director at Bitcoin Magazine, said that countries can't ban Bitcoin. Countries can't attack Bitcoin. They can only ban their people from Bitcoin, and they can only attack Bitcoiners. So I think that is a very key thing, that you can't attack Bitcoin. You can just attack your citizens who want to use Bitcoin. I want to jump over to Flip and then Stephen.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, every thing we do eventually gets settled in the physical and the real world, right? So if we're a threat, it's going to become a physical threat at some point. We've never seen any, like if you publish something bad, people are going to try to throw you in jail. It's going to become physical. And at some point, the middle class, I'll just call us middle class, although we're not globally, but the middle class understands Bitcoin, has access to internet, wants to become the wealthy class. The wealthy are not spending the time or not incentivized enough to understand this nascent new technology. And the poor were accumulating on our side every single day and showing them the way that Bitcoin is not biased. Bitcoin is not against you. Bitcoin is not trying to say don't look like me or sound like me, therefore I'm going to hold you back, which is what our laws and governments have done for years. And the middle class or the poor class or the lower class put together will eat the rich. It will happen again at some point. This is going to get violent. This is going to get bad because these governments will try to physically restrict us. So what Tommy's saying is like the nice version of, we need land, we need property, we need defense. This goes back to Citadel stuff, but I have a very dismal outlook on this. I think that we eventually will either have to take over the governments and get people in power, and then maybe everything will be smooth. But otherwise, they're going to come after us at some point. No way around it. I don't see anything.
Stephen.
Yeah, the way I like to think about it is, prepare for the dark, dystopian, violent upgrade path, and hope and build for the peaceful, prosperous upgrade path. I think it's ultimately a Bitcoin-based future in my eyes. Either way, like that end state is where we get, but the question of how we get there, and nation states trying to prevent their citizenry along the way from being part of that upgrade, that I could see that being dark in some ways and being violent. So understand what that might look like, prepare for it. But I think there are definitely ways in which this plays out in a peaceful way. As going back to what you were saying, Jim, I love what you said about, you don't see governments, you see people. And when you remember that these governments are collections of individuals, I get more optimistic when I frame it that way to myself, right? When I frame it to myself as government versus people, I get dark and pessimistic. When I frame it as a collection of individuals with acting in their own rational self-interest, and then Bitcoin, then I get optimistic. And so there's kind of that whole spectrum there. It used to be really hard, right, to kind of escape from governments that you felt were being unjust, or were, maybe they're extracting too much wealth from you. Maybe you're not satisfied with the service. Maybe it's just outright authoritarian regimes. you used to have to like physically run and escape from the city walls and like flee to the hills. And if you wanted to keep your freedom and keep your value, and now we can secede in place. We can secede digitally. Once money is now information, and the internet is now accessible, and strong encryption exists. So individuals can protect themselves, and they can effectively secede in place and kind of remove their productive capacity, from the state if they feel like that is the sort of morally valid path forward that's in their best interest. And I think it comes down, when you kind of go through the game theory, to one of my favorite quotes from The Bitcoin Standard by Safe, a book I'd highly recommend to everyone, of course, where he said, I'm not going to get the quote right exactly, but it's along the lines of like, Bitcoin's not going to be adopted like the iPhone just because it's this cool, neat tech innovation. It's going to be adopted like gunpowder, because if you don't own it, then maybe your enemies will. Maybe you'll be its victim. And when you look at it through that lens, I think it's a Bitcoin-based future.
I mean,
I'm optimistic.
We could throw over the world governments all at the same time. And you'd have to do like all of them at the same time using the internet. I think Bitcoin could be the catalyst for that. I would love it to be that way. I just think we're extremely naive if we continue to think that the governments aren't going to try to impose their will at some point. We have to be prepared for that. And like, please do not. Yeah, I don't think anyone here is saying it's not a real thing that would happen, but please keep it in mind what that adversarial side of this looks like.
Absolutely. Assume they're going to try to 6102 our Bitcoin, right? Yeah.
I got to jump, guys. I love this conversation. Love these wrap-ups. I wish I could hang out more, but I'll see you guys soon. Thanks for having me.
Wait, NLW, let's you give a last word, and then we can actually go into last words for everyone else.
Dude, I like my last word. Are you kidding me? I'm not gonna beat the last words from these guys. Like these are great thoughts. Listen, my favorite thing is hanging out with all of you guys and people like you and having these conversations. I think the world is a better place if people have big conversations about big important ideas, and I'm glad to be a part of it. So, thank you for having me.
Let's go. Thank you for joining us. Enjoy the family. Enjoy the weekend. Cheers.
Cheers, all.
All right, y'all. Who wants to jump in next? Because it's time for dinner time for me. So selfishly, I'm trying to wrap this one up as well. I want to go over to Ced, actually. Ced, what's your last word to the Bitcoin Magazine audience?
Yeah, man, I'm an eternal optimist, but I spend all my time thinking about the worst case scenario. But we were talking about nation states, being pragmatic. I'm an American. I'd love to see the Federal Reserve adopt Bitcoin in some way. I'm not saying that's imminent, but that's the next announcement that matters to me. It's not the corporations, and it's not other nation states. It's when the Federal Reserve adopts Bitcoin and marries the two together, so we actually can get back to the American dream and have optimism. I think it's backed by data, but that the most Bitcoin is probably in American hands when you look at global allocation of users. So I'd like to see us keep that competitive advantage. And again, it's not about being an American from a nation state standpoint. It's just trying to be that beacon on the hill. And we represent that thing for everybody. So I'd like to see us take that crown back and represent freedom, sovereignty, and independence for the individual, not for the state. And I'd love to see the Fed adopt Bitcoin in some way. I'm not optimistic about it, but that's my eternal optimism in terms of humanity for the next big step for Bitcoin. Other than that, I just say keep stacking, stay humble, and take care of yourself and your friends and family, and stack Bitcoin.
Where can people find you, Ced?
Ced Youngelman, at Ced Youngelman on Twitter, and De La BTC Matrix on Twitter as well. And my show is Bitcoin Matrix Podcast. So that's where people can find me. I really appreciate it. It's been so
I'll stand by it.
with you guys.
So one of my top 5 podcasts ever. All right, let's go over to Flip.
Yeah, this is a lot of fun. I'm pretty excited. I think the thing that would get me excited, the next big thing, I'm going to call it now. And I probably should have done this earlier so we could have had fun with it. But Chamath for president. Wow. Alexis Ohanian for vice president. And I think that ticket right there will change everything that we do for a positive world. So all that negative shit I just put out there, that would give us positive vibes, and they would actually start to put us in a better place. You can find me on the Bitcoin Twitch. That's about it.
Let's
And
go.
Twitter. Yeah.
Twitch.tv/Bitcoin.
That's
All right, let's go over to Stephen.
Yeah, love this discussion. Grateful to be a part of it. We've hit on some pretty deep topics, which I love. I'll kind of, for my final thought, I'll kind of end with, maybe a shallow, fun topic. Is just, I think the recent weeks have been so amazing with just all of the bullish news, such a barrage of bullish news, right? Like after the bear market of the last few years, when someone asks you like why Bitcoin's price is going up or why you're like bullish on this thing, there used to be like one very specific reason that we would all kind of know, and you'd be able to like pick that. And now just, I don't even know. When people ask me why I'm bullish, it's just like, I'm just stuck in paralysis by all this buffet of things to choose from, because there's so much bullish news on every front. And so stay vigilant, but don't forget to have fun and cherish that. And I'm on Twitter, SThenC, STHENC. I tweet about Bitcoin and defunding the state.
Let's go. Also funding great startups. Let's go to Bran, then Jim, and then we can close it out with our queen, Kenetra.
Yeah, I'll be quick. I think that, I agree with what Stephen just said. This is so bullish right now. It's so exciting to be here. And, I think that we're looking at, the people who are in Bitcoin now are the people who fundamentally understood how valuable and how important this technology is. And that's the people who should be having the microphones for the next decades, the next centuries. I mean, it is when you fundamentally understand how Bitcoin aligns incentives, the tuning fork, to serve for Jim's point, that sort of insight is so hard to come by. And, that shows, the ability to reason deeply. And, I'm going to run against Chamath for president. So let's go.
Who would you rather have? Wait, if Chamath ran, Bran, what do you think about a vice president? Who would be the best vice president?
For Chamath?
I know you have an answer somewhere in you.
That's a really good question. I actually don't have an answer. I don't know.
I thought you were going to say
it.
Eric Weinstein. All right, let's go.
He'd be up there.
Sir for Jim.
All right. I like to end
Always ready, sir.
Just a short story of hope and optimism, if I might. I was very, very fortunate to coordinate with anywhere between 12 and 20 Bitcoiners in the Colorado Rockies last week. And one in particular, we have to thank. He's the ex-CFO of Shapeshift, a guy named Justin. And on Twitter, it's at JBBILDLINCO, Blinko. He gave us his house to use, so generous, a gorgeous house in Silverthorne, Colorado, minutes from a bunch of really great ski slopes. And a whole bunch of really cool Bitcoiners came together. And it's just one of these environments, hanging out with people directly and sharing stories, encouraging each other, teaching each other, and just socializing and hanging out together was fantastic. I'd really like to just mention some of the people that were there. Ben Northway at North Ben on Twitter, Dustin Dedimer at Dustin_Dedimer, Colin Harper from CoinDesk Magazine and his girlfriend Molly, he's at Ashley Hodling on Twitter, Skeef at Skeef25, another developer. He was great to have around. I could pick his brain with all kind of technical questions. I'm just going to say his Twitter is at a Bitcoin person. He's developing a 501c3 fund to help fund developers, tax-free, what do they call that? Charitable organization. People that are movers and shakers all over the space. Another guy goes by the name of Bobo Dread at Pole Vault Dream on Twitter. He's another developer working on a whole bunch of new stuff for the citizens of Jamaica, where he's from, moving the ball forward down there. Really unbelievable stuff. Another guy named Jason, he goes at JZO on Twitter. He works for Liberty X. He's helping establish Bitcoin ATMs all over the country. fascinating, smart gentleman, unbelievable to have around. And I have to say this about everybody, super generous. Everybody pitched in to cook and clean, singing songs together. It was just fantastic. Then we had Ben the Carmen over there. He's a developer for Shoodbits. He's working on DLCs. Young guy, but super smart, helping really move the ball forward in Bitcoin. So awesome to hang out with him. And then the coordinator of this whole thing, Katie the Russian. Many of you know who Katie is, and she is what a shaker and a mover. I'm telling you, she's got a business that helps people get multiple passports all over the world, and she's working with another awesome girl that I just met. They're working on an app to help people with their health. And that girl, Lydia, she was there also. She's at Lydia KVELL on Twitter. And then we had a couple of guests drop by. Denver Bitcoin, who doesn't live too far, who works for Upstream Data. He's helping to use up wasted natural gas and turn it into sats. You know, you guys know the story. He stopped by and hung out with us for a night. And then we had Matt Hill from Start9 came by. He's one of the guys that helps build the embassy personal server, which is definitely going to make waves in not just the Bitcoin space, but in the overall computing space, in my opinion. And so we had all these people just hanging out for 6 days, playing chess, playing poker, singing songs. There's an outdoor hot tub. We were up on a hill overlooking the town of Silverthorne. It's absolutely gorgeous. And I would say anybody who wants to book a ski trip, you got to use Justin's Airbnb. This house is fantastic. It sleeps like 20 people, 2 ovens, 2 microwaves. Like I said, a hot tub. We're sitting in the hot tub with the snow coming down. It was unbelievable. Just such okay. The best point of the story. I'm thinking about this. I wake up the other day. I see the Bitcoin price moves up like $8,000 overnight, like because of Tesla news. And I just start counting all the people in the house. And I think, well, if everybody just has one Bitcoin, the collective wealth of this house just went up like over 100 grand. And it may have gone up over several million. And I walk upstairs to everybody with the biggest smile on their face, cooking bacon and eggs and ready to go to the ski slope going, did you see what happened to the price of Bitcoin last night? It was just unreal. What a euphoric feeling to be around like-minded people and have something like that happen to all of us at the same time. Just amazing. I encourage everybody and anybody, get with other Bitcoiners, go to conferences, socialize, get together, talk about stuff, teach each other, learn, encourage each other. This is just an absolutely, I am so blessed to be taken in by a bunch of strangers. I didn't know any of you folks a couple of years ago. I feel like we're all great friends now. This is just unbelievable. This is where Bitcoin takes everybody. It unites everybody. It's unbelievable.
You're my friend.
Bitcoin is, bless up. Bitcoin is common ground, y'all. Bitcoin is common ground. There's an article written on Bitcoin
Miami
that describes this experience perfectly. And yes, Bitcoin Magazine is a part of the Bitcoin 2021 experience. Brand BTC here on this chat is putting it together. He is bringing about a bunch of fantastic speakers. Kenetra, Cashflow Queen. Let's close this one out. Everyone, before Kenetra closes this out, make sure you go to Bitcoin 2021. Make sure to go to b.tc/conference, buy your ticket, use code Satoshi in all caps to get 10% off. Cashflow Queen, close us out.
Yes. Bless up. Jim, your enthusiasm is contagious, and I love it. My parting words are, Bitcoin is hope. Bitcoin is love. Bitcoin is prosperity. Bitcoin is sovereignty. However you fit into the Bitcoin ecosystem, into the Bitcoin world. Maybe you're a hodler, maybe you're a developer, maybe you're an educator. Wherever your lane is, ride that lane out. We need everyone. I just keep thinking about that tuning fork, Jim. That tuning fork. Universe means one song, one sound, right? So, for us, how we're moving the Bitcoin forward, or at least attempting, I'm here in the Caribbean. I need to get with Bobo. You mentioned him, Jim. He just started following me. I need to get with him because I'm between Barbados and Jamaica. And, the people over here, the average income in Jamaica is $5,000 a week. That's $50 US a week. That's the minimum wage income. They don't have access. They're disenfranchised. Yeah, and that was one of the things that got me interested in Bitcoin was the fact that this could be a mechanism for people, around the globe that are disenfranchised from the financial markets, don't have access, right? So excuse me, we're working on a startup for Barbados and Jamaica, but eventually the entire Caribbean to get these people on board. You can follow me on Twitter, connect with me on Twitter. I'm at cashflow_queen. Need all the help that we can get. I have no idea what the fuck I'm doing, but I'm excited about it.
Let's go. Let's go. Bitcoiners are doers. We're not sitters and thinkers. We just get out there and make it fucking happen. Just like Bitcoin. Bitcoin gets out there and makes it happen. So I appreciate you, Cashflow Queen. I appreciate every single person who came onto this chat. Y'all, I'm CK Snarks. This has been a good one. It's time for me to eat some dinner. And to everyone out there, stay humble, stack sats, follow each and every one of these guys. This is a fantastic conversation and fantastic panel. Peace.
Thank you.
Cheers. Thanks, everyone.